So you're starting a video production company and you realize you're going to need to invest in some equipment, and all of a sudden it starts getting pretty expensive. So in this video, I'm going to break down a few different budget options and some equipment that you should consider buying when starting and growing a video production company. So the first budget we're going to look at is up to £1,000. The next budget is up to £2,000, and the third is up to £4,000. So I'll be able to show you at each stage what I would add to my inventory list to make sure my production is becoming better quality, and also my investment is going further with the equipment. Now, at minimum, to get started, you're gonna need a camera and a lens, and you're also going to need a laptop and a piece of editing software or something to edit from. So really what I'm gonna focus on is, assuming that you've already got your camera and your laptop and editing software, how would I then grow your production company? What things could you purchase to improve your production quality and also make a difference to your workflow and capabilities too? So let's take a look at our first budget, which is from $0 up to $1,000. Now, the main areas you're going to want to grow your business is in your camera body, the camera lenses, that has an impact on your imagery, and then the peripherals around that, such as audio, lighting, tripod, stabilization, camera rigs, and things like that. And so I'll break this down as we move up throughout the budgets as well, and what's most important if you're just starting out, because you might not be able to invest in everything from day one. Now, you've probably heard of the saying, buy cheap, buy twice. Now, you can certainly invest in super high-end luxury brands such as Aperture lights and so on and so forth, but that's gonna pretty much eat up your entire budget in one sitting. So I'm gonna show you some brands that you'll know, others that you won't, and only brands that I've had experience working with as well in terms of using them for our own production company, so that I feel relatively happy recommending them to you as well. At the very end of this video, I'm going to give you a tip that we use time and time again to ensure that we can invest in the latest camera equipment and know that we have that money in place. So first up, tripod. Tripod's a great investment. If you're going to be shooting lots of interviews, you're going to want one. Manfrotto is a very well-known brand. I think I spent about £1,000 on my first tripod, and that still lasts me to today, and I've had that for many, many years. But again, if we're watching budgets, something like this basic model, this Manfrotto MVK 502, something around this field will set you back about £360, but it's going to be a solid tripod that will last you probably for a couple of years. Just double check payloads with tripods. That's the maximum amount that you can actually mount in terms of weight onto it. So if you've got a big heavy camera, very unlikely, and you're going to mount it on this tripod, you don't want it slipping off and breaking. So just make sure that the camera you've got will be compatible with this type of tripod. But I would go down this route. You can't go too wrong with a Manfrotto tripod. I think that that's a good option if you're starting out. Now, next up, you're going to be looking at audio. Audio is so important. If you're going to be doing business overview videos and interviews with people, now alongside your tripod, you're probably going to want some audio. Rode Wireless Go, I've heard really good things about. I personally use the Rode Filmmaker kit, but I've included this because it's slightly cheaper, and I know a lot of people who use it and say that it's a great tool for their kit bag as well. So that will set you back £255 at the moment through Amazon, and you really want to make sure you get really good audio quality. That's so important, because people will watch a bad video with good audio, but they won't watch a good video with bad audio. They'll just end up clicking off or not engaging with it as much. And you want that people to engage with it, because then your client will see a good return on their investment and they'll keep coming back to use you. Now, at this point, we're around about halfway through our budget. So next up, I'm going to look into lighting. Lighting, thinking about lighting your subjects, or if you're shooting products or things like that, you're going to want to introduce that. Now, like I said, you can invest in really high-end brands, but that is only going to eat into your budget very, very quickly. And if you don't have the cash there, and I definitely don't ever suggest getting into debt with video production equipment, my tip at the end of the video will actually show you how you can avoid that. I would look at getting this newer 2-pack starter light. They're 2 dimmable LED panels that you could shoot through a diffuser or just use to light a subject. They're very basic. I know a lot of people who have started out with these. We even have a set of these now. That's what's lighting this backdrop right here. We don't use them now too much outside of that. We have much higher quality lights and different types of lights with softboxes and so on and so forth. But again, very cheap, very cost effective. And if you're just starting out, you start to feel like a bit more of a legit company when you've got lights, audio, and a tripod. Now, you've got a very small budget left to play with. And at this point, I'd be potentially thinking about stabilization, because if you've got your tripod, your camera, your lens, your audio and your lighting kind of sorted out, then stabilization is going to allow you to move around the subject and get some really dynamic shots. So for that, I'm going to head back over to MPB or buy this secondhand. And I'd look at something like the DJI Ronin S. Now, if I scroll down here, the cheapest option is going to be around £239. You might be able to find it cheaper online. Now, that does take us slightly over budget, taking us to basically £1,012. But if you can stretch that extra £12, then I think that's a worthwhile investment. Then you have most areas covered. And what that means is that also enables you to go out there and to work for different clients and do different types of projects. If you don't have a stabilization, then it becomes more difficult to do certain projects. And also, you don't want to be shooting an interview holding your stabilizer like this, because you're going to end up wobbling. So that's why you're going to want your tripod and the lighting, and obviously the audio speaks for itself as well. So that's why I would lay that out in that way for a fundamental person who is starting. So now let's look at our next budget, which is up to £2,000. What would I recommend for someone who's got a £2,000 budget? And really here, I'm looking to what additions would I make to my kit bag to mean that I can produce better quality work or make my life easier overall. Well, the first thing I would jump to is another light. Having good lighting makes such a difference to the production value and the quality of your work, even if you're shooting on a basic camera. And I would recommend something like a falconized light. I've got one of these set up over here at the moment, and we use these quite a lot. A very kind of basic light, but does a really nice job. It comes with a variety of soft boxes as well, and that's going to set you back about £300. So not hugely expensive. It allows you to dim it and also change the color temperature as well, so you can have it slightly warmer or slightly cooler. But I would start to think about now upgrading some of that, and that's why I would jump straight into adding one of these lights to my kit bag. Now, what are we going to do with the next £1,300? Well, this is where I would go back to your camera lenses. Now, very early on, I invested in Canon glass, Canon L series glass, and even though we now shoot on Sony, we actually use an adapter to allow us to do that. But investing in good glass means that this is going to stay with you for a long period of time. So if you can afford it, invest in good quality lenses, because you're going to have them, basically forever. Now, my setup when it comes to lenses is, if you're starting out, I would recommend having a wide lens, something like a 17-40, which is what this one here is. And then I would also recommend having a zoom lens or a longer lens, which is a 24-105. That means you're going to be able to get your wide shots, and you're also going to be able to get your close-up shots as well. But assuming you already have that in your camera bag, I would potentially think about utilizing a 50mm and start to play around with some of your prime lenses as well. Because a 50mm is really nice for interviews, and it also gets you to think about using prime lenses and makes you a better camera person, because you're constantly thinking about, okay, if the lens can't move, how can I position this shot slightly better? Not to mention, it has a lovely depth of field as well. So with that additional amount, depending on what camera you've got set up, and I'm not going to go into loads of detail here, because depending on what camera you have and what style videography you do is going to depend on what lens you're going to get. So I'm going to leave that over to you, but that's how I would spend that remaining amount of money. So finally, if you're starting a production company or looking to grow it, and you've got a healthy budget of around about £4,000 for everything. Now, the reason I say for everything is because, of course, you could just drop £4,000 on the camera body itself. But I'm going to assume if you're just starting out, you're probably not going to have £4,000 for a camera body, plus all of these other extras that really go into making your overall production a lot better. If you just drop £4,000 on a camera itself, and you don't have any lighting or audio, then the quality of your production is still going to look bad, right? And don't forget, I'm going to give you my golden tip at the end for making sure you've got that money coming in to invest in the latest equipment. So what I would then look to purchase are the peripherals, the things that are going to really help you. And the first thing I would definitely recommend is a tilter nucleus. There's various different levels of these. This is the one that we purchased at about £1,500. And this is a wireless follow focus. This allows you to change your focus wheel. So if you've got the camera on a tripod or you've got it on your stabilization rig, you can scroll the wheel and it changes that depth of field. Why that's important is it allows you to shoot really shallow depth of field so the background's really blurry while your subject is in focus, and it allows you to shift that around. That just means that your overall video is going to look a lot better as a result. I love using this. We use it on most shoots, and it's definitely something I would consider looking into if you've got a healthy budget. Next up is then a shoulder rig, being able to have the ability to use your camera in more way than just handheld or on the tripod. I would then start thinking about having it on your shoulder. It allows you to adapt and move around with that. And in a minute, I'll show you one of the setups that we have on our cameras here too. So that takes us to around about £3,500, I think £3,550. Pound. So next I'm thinking, if I've got it on a shoulder rig, what might be really helpful, or in some more of my setups on getting more dynamic and creative with my camera positions, is actually introducing a monitor, a bigger monitor so I can see what's happening, or even a monitor that allows you to potentially hang your camera or put your camera in a certain position, maybe a top-down shot, and then view on the monitor what's happening on screen. And a monitor is a great way of doing that. Now, of course, there's lots of different brands out there, and a lot of them are very expensive. FeelWorld is a very cheap and affordable monitor, but still allows a good quality image and has lots of inbuilt functions. We actually use one of these monitors ourselves, and for £169, £170, you can't really go too wrong. So I would consider adding that to your kit bag as well. So we've got round about £300 left in our budget. At this point, I would now go back around the circle and probably start to increase my audio quality, whether that's looking at a different supplier, whether that's Rode, a different type of microphone kit, or Sennheiser or something like that, or even just adding another Rode wireless Go to your kit bag as well. As you start to get more and more projects, you'll notice that you might start to do interviews where you interview more than one person, so that might be something that you want to look into as well. So constantly it's about reinvesting, and again, there's so many different options, but this is just what I would do. If I'm starting out, I would focus on my audio, my lighting, and having a tripod. I would then start to think about stabilization and upgrading my lighting further, and then at that point, from that point onwards, it's all the peripherals around it. How can I improve the value that I bring? And I can do that through adding a shoulder rig, through adding wireless follow focus, and by adding more lights, more audio, screens so I can see a better picture. And hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding of how I've built my production company and the things that you should be thinking about, because otherwise it can get very expensive very quick and very overwhelming, especially when you're just starting out. Now, this is actually a camera that I've got right here. So this is our FS7, and we picked this up secondhand for around about £4,000. And we've obviously added a few more things to it since then. We've got the Metabone speed booster, which allows us to connect our Canon lenses, and we've also got a V-Lock battery on the back. And then I've got my shoulder rig from Small Rig, and also a tilter nucleus on the end there that I was talking about earlier on. So a very kind of simple setup. We didn't go for a super high-end brand on the shoulder rig. I can't fault it. The shoulder rig probably cost me about £150 to £200, and we've had it for years, and these things take a bit of a battering as well. So that's one of the rigs that we actually use, and it just gives you a bit of an insight. Now, I promised you guys I would tell you a strategy that you can use when growing your production company to make sure you don't go into debt, and always make sure you've got the investment there to spend on new equipment. Now, time and time again, I would have a project that's coming in, and I would ask for a 50% deposit up front. For a couple of years, I actually spent that money investing in new camera gear. So if I had a project coming in for £500, I would invoice it for £250. Now, let's say I know I needed to do an interview on that project, but I didn't actually have a microphone at the time, then I just spent that £250 on a microphone. So as long as you're aware of where your money needs to go and how much those things are, when you're pricing up these projects, if you ask for a deposit up front, you can get that money in. Another classic example is we have a car rig that enables us to put our camera onto a car. That cost us about £300 secondhand, and actually we only purchased it when we confirmed a project that was going to be for a car company. Otherwise, there was no point in us investing in that money. Now, you can obviously hire equipment as well, but I think there's a lot more value to you owning it, getting really used to it, and then you can also have it as an asset for your business. If you want to hire it out, you're welcome to do so, or just having it available to you all the time to be able to do those last minute projects, I think provides a lot of value to me. And that's why generally we buy all of our equipment and have it all in-house with very little need to hire it out. That also means as we've grown the team, we have lots of different setups, lots of different cameras, lots of different lenses and equipment. It means that the team can just take what they need and shoot off, and we can have multiple people on different shoots on any single day. So take deposits up front. Work out what you're going to need for that project, and if you don't have it, don't worry. Just go and use that investment to purchase it for that project. It might mean that you effectively do a couple of projects for free, but it's not actually free because you're gaining a piece of equipment, an asset to your business to help you do a better job for more clients down the line. I hope you've liked this style of video. It's a little bit different to the kind of videos we do here, but let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning how to sign your first client, then take a look at this video. We took George, who was an absolute beginner. We helped him build a portfolio and get him to land his first client. Make sure you check that out. And until next time, peace.